desire I have is truly to like let kids know that they're okay and that there are people out there that maybe feel weird like they do, because that's what I need. That's what little Phaea needed.
Welcome to You May Contribute a Verse. I'm Brenna Jeanneret, rock climber, mom, and kidlit author of The Law of Birthdays, illustrated by Maria Condra. I'm joined by my co-host Josh Monken, dad, kidlit author, and science communicator, and podcast wizard Jon Seymour, author-illustrator of A Morning with Blueberry. This episode is proudly presented by our Canadian children's book publisher, Tealmore Press, where every book sold supports reforestation. Did you know that November 15th was the lunar event called a supermoon? Don't worry, it's easy to remember because Sue Lancaster's debut book, illustrated by Tincho Schmidt, also released on that day, and of course, it's called Supermoon. Check out Tealmore's latest picture book release and the rest of their catalog at tealmorepress.com. And that was today's guest, Phaea Crede, and we talk about slinky pizza dresses, butts in books, being weird, and Brodents. Want to know what on earth that is? You'll have to listen to the episode. And don't forget to check out Phaea's newest books, Oh Dear, coming this spring, and Princess Battle Royale, coming summer 2025. Here's Phaea's verse. Yeah, no, you're good. But still, no, you look...
we were just talking about we got to be put together, and I'm actually a little surprised that you didn't come with your pizza head on.
I have a
right?
I know. Well, the pizza head's in the car, but I have this.
I love that you keep it in the car. Oh, that is amazing! Wow.
Yeah. It's my new pizza dress. I ordered it from Etsy.
Oh, it's a dress.
It's a dress, but honestly, I think it's a little too curvy to wear for the kids. I don't think I'm going to use it for. I didn't mean to order like a cute pizza dress. I meant to order like a
slinky
quirky
pizza cocktail.
Yeah, it's a little slinky. I was like, this is not appropriate. So it's for personal use.
Which is so odd, though,
It's very
given
odd.
the design that it would be slinky at all. Like it doesn't lend itself to that, but it's like
it's very. The shape was
Wow.
was unexpectedly feminine when it is a dress.
No,
I was like,
I love everything about that, and I love that you have put a flannel over top. That is that is something I would totally do 100%. I love it. I love a good flannel.
That's a Friday look. We were just talking. We were just talking about. I have a debut in the works now, and I've gotten a first look at sketches of the main character, and it's
exciting,
absolutely magical. And I'm in contact with my illustrator who's Brazilian on Instagram, and just getting these little glimpses. You can do self-destruct DM picture sends on Instagram. So I got these little pictures, and then they'll blow up and go away, and I can't get them back. And I was like, shoot, I should have screenshotted.
Yeah, right. Actually, no, that's true. I do remember a friend of mine sent me a picture that did that, and I was like, hey, wait a second. I'm like, what happened? And this was not anything that had anything to do with publishing. It was just a random picture. So I'm like, what happened to it? Did I do something? Or
I think that I always thought it was me too. I realized this is a thing. I think it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a tease. So wait, this is naked, right?
Yes.
Yes. So I am
I didn't know the name of my debut.
I'm interested in picture books, and so I tend to read a little bit when I have a break. But I was like, how is this going to work? I mean, it's fabulous. Both of your books. I read about both of your books that are coming out, the Birthday Rules book and Naked, and I was like, I'm excited for both of them, obviously. But I was like, how is the nudity going to be handled? And I'm really excited to find out, because I think nudity
Can you show her?
Funny.
Could you just show her?
And
so few people have seen. All right, now I'm being open about it because I'm holding it up from my phone.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, you better work. I am obsessed.
Isn't it?
That is
Isn't it
so
cute?
funny.
And it's so also smart, right? That's a great,
it's classic.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think naked babies are such a big part of every child's life, and as parents, the babies are always naked, and I think it's yeah. Oh, I tried to write a book.
To turn 7.
Oh, do they still have naked stuff?
Yes. No, still he's downstairs naked right now.
Yeah, my daughter too. They're gonna murder me if I say that, but yeah, there's nudity all the time. Nudity is normal. But yeah, I tried to write a book. I wrote it. That was about, it was like an ode to the moon, but it was like a baby's butt that we did go out in submission.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It went on sub, but did not go anywhere. I thought it was really funny. I thought it was called, what was it called? The Full Moon is Also a Butt, I think is what it was called. And I was very proud of it. But maybe after Naked comes out, then maybe there'll be like a whole thing with naked babies, and that would be great.
I would love nothing more than to be a trendsetter for
Yes, if that happens, I mean, I've got one too that's about butts.
Really?
So I would love to just, I would love to get that out in the zeitgeist. And Josh, we are all going to ride your coattails. Please make this happen.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Naked butts.
Naked butts.
Yeah.
What's your butt? What's your butt one? I'll cut it out or bleep it.
Scuttlebutt.
Oh, it's only kind of butt. Scuttlebutt.
I know. It was very much way more about butts when I first wrote it. Now it has morphed into like a whole new thing. But that is how. But get it? That is how it started.
It is nice when it's like when you tie it in with vocabulary. That's fun.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, which there's a bunch of wordplay in there and a whole bunch of. Anyways, yeah, I love that. I love all my books, but you know.
I know.
We're here to talk about your books. Faye.
Yay.
Yeah, right. Enough about us.
No, I love books. All books are great. All books.
What experience have you had? Yeah, I mean, with your illustrators and
oh my
such.
gosh.
I mean, especially with like Super Pizza and Kid Kale.
So that is, gosh, I love that book too. Thank you. So I've had different illustrators for each of my books, which is totally common. I think with Super Pizza and Kid Kale, because it was more graphic novel-y, Viking got Zach, who is he's a storyboard artist, and he's done stuff for Nickelodeon. And so he had this very sort of it seemed very 90s throwback Nickelodeon to me. A little deranged, I think. And I fell
deranged
in love
Nickelodeon.
with it.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, and I thought it fits.
Sorry, I am like talking over you. I'm just so excited. I love all of that. Yeah. Nickelodeon, deranged, graphic novel. Anyways, continue. I'm sorry.
No, it felt the same way. I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely perfect because it's not meant to be. The story is about friendship and of course, making room for your friends when maybe you're more popular than the other kid. But it is supposed to be really silly and action packed, which it is. And Zach he's so, I'm like looking at the book right now. Like he just brought all this joy and innocence and grotesqueness to the story that made it something so much more demented than I even, I think I wanted it to be demented. And in fact, the first draft of Super Pizza and Kid Kale was just about Super Pizza. And the whole conflict was that Super Pizza wanted to be a hero, but the kids kept trying to eat them. Which I thought was really funny. And then illustrators they didn't have an opinion because editors were like, no, like that's not a good story. And one person said, why don't you add a sidekick? And eventually, like it turned into Kid Kale, who is sweet and like does a good job standing up for themselves. But in the original version, Kid Kale took over the entire town and had kale growing everywhere. It was like just totally a villain. So I always felt like a little darker and more messed up, I think, and then they pull me back to a place where it's like more, kid friendly. But then Zach adds this sort of edge, I think, of these beautiful characters that are like the kids are not beautiful kids. The adults are not beautiful adults. Super Pizza and Kid Kale are like they're sweet, but it's like there's something a little off about it. So it's a
little Cartoon Network kind of craziness. Mm-hmm. What help us through? I mean, this part where you had a whole different book. Presumably with your agent that then completely did a 180.
This was so it was not, it didn't even make it to the agent. So this story, so Super Pizza and Kid Kale came to life when I was hanging out with my daughter, Mabel, when she was 3. And we were playing a game of it's like a story building game that I learned from Josh Funk, who's lovely. I used to go see him do presentations all the time. And he had the kids in the library group play noun plus want. So you just take a noun, like any noun, and then something a character might want, and then you have to justify what that character is, and that's where the story came from. And so I was playing that with Mabel, and Mabel came up with a piece of pizza who wanted to be a superhero. And I thought that was brilliant. And I was like, may I steal that? And she was 3 and she was like, that's fine. And so I wrote a draft of it a long time ago. Like, I guess so she's 8. So it was like at least 5 years ago. And I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a book deal. I think Jet the Cat is Not a Cat was my first book, and it hadn't been sold yet or anything. But in New England, SCBWI, we have this yearly event called the Agent Editor Day. Now it's like really hard to get into. It's like a lottery system, but essentially you go like sit at tables with a bunch of other authors and a bunch of editors or agents, read books, give each other critiques. And at that event, there was one editor from a I don't even think maybe the publishing house doesn't even exist anymore. I don't know. We don't know. But he was like, oh, this seems like a good book. Can you send it to me? And then he rejected it eventually because he didn't like it. And that's okay, because that's where Kid Kale came from.
Just kidding.
Yeah, but that was kind of, it was, but that's so typical. And it was okay because without him, I wouldn't have had Kid Kale be in the story, who ends up, I think I like Kid Kale more than Super Pizza, actually. But anyway, so I still didn't have an agent. I still didn't have a book deal. And I was kind of embarrassed at this point because going through that level of rejection, especially like when he'd been like, I'm really interested. And he's like, just kidding. I don't know how to do this. It's too weird. Then I sold, I'm gesturing back here, which is not helpful, but Jet the Cat, and got an agent sort of like within 1 month, which was a very good month for me. And then we submitted a story that I wrote called Asparagosts, which was about a kid who refused to eat their asparagus and then came back and haunted them, which I thought was really clever. Editors did not agree, but one editor in the rejection note was like, it's too bad because I really like anthropomorphic food. And I said, when I read that, I said to Mo, my agent, I was like, oh, well, I have another story with anthropomorphic food that I'm too embarrassed to show anybody because I think it might be too weird. And she sent it just to this editor at Viking, and then they made an offer on it. It was wild, totally wild. So those rejection emails, rejections really get you some powerful stuff, I think.
As long as they're in a form.
Yeah.
And then it's just...
Right, and then you get nothing.
Then
you're just like,
So is Jet the Cat what got Mo, your agent? Is that the thing that hooked? Okay.
So, well, this is a method I heard a lot, whereas like if you get an offer for a book, because I submitted directly to Barefoot Books through one of those agent editor days that we have up here in New England. They took maybe a year and a half to make an offer, which is totally typical and totally fine.
Long.
But it was good that it took that long because that fall I had queried Mo, and I heard back from her like the week that Barefoot Books made an offer on Jet the Cat Is Not a Cat. And so I was like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to write Mo and be like, hello, Mo, thank you for asking about more work. By the way, I have an offer. Would you like to be beep, bop, boop, boop? And so I just could have spun that into, very luckily, Mo and I get along really well, thank goodness, because I was not talking to anybody else. And I was like, whatever she says, I'll just say yes. But it's worked out great. Yeah. And we've been together for 5 years now, I think, or maybe 4 years. It's lovely. Yeah. Just for the public out there, Mo is amazing, incredible. She plays violin. She loves musical theater, and I adore her. So she's an awesome person and an awesome agent. Yeah. But it's the showing up. Sorry, Josh, I know you were trying to say something. I'm like, I will continue talking. It's the showing up. No, you should.
You are the guest. Yeah.
Thank you. Finally, some recognition.
I know, right? Show a little respect, okay? She wore her best flannel and her pizza outfit. Just stand down, Josh.
This flannel actually belonged to my husband, and then we collectively accidentally shrunk it in the wash, and now it is mine. Which, again, serendipity. It was always meant to be mine. But yeah, showing up, I think it's really hard to show up. And for me, anyway, like I work full time. I have 2 kids. I have a very needy dog. I have, I'm tired. I am an introvert. Right. So it's like showing up to stuff is so hard. But every time I leave my house and go to like a book event or like somebody's book launch, magical things happen that I couldn't even tell you why they end up like lifting up my career, lifting up the career of other people, but it always does. And it's such a magical thing, I think, because there's no competitive edge in Kidlit. We all just love each other so much and like want the best for each other. And the rising tide lifts all ships. That's what it is. That's what I found with my critique groups. We all started out as pre-published, and both of my critique groups now are like all published and agented. And it's the magic of being together. It's cool. I love it.
Yes. I mean, that's part of why we love this podcast so much. Like, the Kidlit world has been so generous in just saying yes and like coming on and just spending time with us. And we just love to chat about books, you know, like and we're hoping, you know, that the conversations help a little bit and people seem to be, you know, like resonating with them. And if nothing else, it's just fun to like chat with people about how their books came to be. So, I mean, yeah, 100% agree with that.
And manifest. We just sit here and manifest for ourselves.
I love It's so true. It is so true. And
this magic fingers for the listening audience.
Manifesting.
Jazz
yes,
finger.
I should describe.
Come on over, opportunity.
The water is warm. Come on.
It is. I think I was just remembering. I've been listening to, because I think we all connected maybe last fall, and so I've been listening to episodes of the podcast since then. And I made it through the Tara Lazar one. Only halfway because I got like distracted, but then forever when I'd open my podcast app, it would just say, Tara Lazar is not a jerk. And I'd be like, ha, ha, ha. And every time I look at it, I'd be like, what? And I'm like, oh, that's right. It really brought me a lot of joy.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Note to self, be mindful about what I title episodes because you never know how long that's going to be in front of somebody.
Right. No, that's a great one. I loved that one.
And it's true. She's a lovely person.
She is not.
Yeah. How did you get started?
I got started. So I've always been like in the world of writing since I was little. I really wanted to write. And I talk about this a lot when I go on school visits. But I was diagnosed with dyslexia like really young. I think it was like when I was 8. And so in the 80s, being diagnosed with dyslexia, it was like, it's different than now. There wasn't as much support. And I don't have the reading type of dyslexia. I have the writing type of dyslexia. So when I would sit down, which I think is a different name, but I don't actually know it, and that's okay. When I would try to write like stories and stuff, my handwriting just wouldn't cooperate. Like letters swapped around, and I never got the hang of like spelling and grammar. Like truly, it was like a real struggle. And so really early on, like probably around 8 or 9, I decided that real writers didn't have dyslexia. And so I sort of put writing aside for a long time. Because I was like embarrassed. I couldn't do it well enough. And then when I was in my 20s, I was doing comedy. I was doing stand-up and God help us all. I was trying to do improv.
So cool.
It was cool. It was cool. But I started...
So cool.
It is cool. I think it's a good thing for anybody to do, to like get used to being in front of crowds and just like not, and it's a good way to write because nobody looks at what you're writing. You're just saying it out loud. So it's not like it matters if you're spelling things wrong. But I started writing short form, a little Swedish, sorry, short form comedy, like sketches. And that turned into a gig. I used to go on auditions. I was like an actor and all that. And I auditioned to be, this is such a long answer. Wow. That's all right. You can edit all this out.
That's okay.
So I auditioned.
Love it. This is great.
Just keep going. Yeah.
I auditioned to be on a show for Nintendo. And I was like a big Nintendo kid when I was younger. And so it was like a show on the Nintendo Wii, which was like a couple systems ago. Like it was to host and talk about new games. And I didn't get cast on it, but because I'm so charming, they were like, well, maybe you could write for it. And I was like, I'm not great at writing, but okay. And so I ended up being the head writer of that show. And I got into like a couple like awkward situations where I had people being like, you can't spell, like your grammar's terrible. And I'm like, that's okay. We're going to push through. It was hard, but I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm going to do it anyway. And then from there, like copywriting gigs and like weird little new media stuff, and which brought me up to sort of like having babies and having to have a real job, which I have these days. And then reading kids' books and being like, oh, this is short form comedy. And I have confidence now in my writing. I know it doesn't have to be perfect. I have proof that I can be a writer and not have to spell things correctly when I try to write picture books, because it's the same. It's like a little sketch comedy thing.
Yes.
Sketch comedy thing.
Yes.
But, so I was just like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I've quit so many things. I've quit stand-up. I've quit acting. Like, I'm just going to commit to writing picture books, and just, even if I never get published, we'll just see how it goes. And happily, it's taken me some really lovely places and some really weird books, which I'm really happy about.
That That is amazing. I love that you think about picture books as short form sketch comedy because I mean, yes, they totally are. They 100% are.
Yeah.
I love that. And I also love, like, I'm a horrible speller. I always have been. My grammar, not amazing. Yeah. No, so like I lean really hard on like spell check and just like my critique partners for grammar. Like I just, so I very much appreciate that you also are not great at those things because if you're listening, right, you don't have to be like you can, have outside help for that. Like, whatever, use whatever tools you need to. You can still be a writer. You can still do all the stuff.
We just need
that's why there are copy editors.
That's right. Yes. There's a whole industry dedicated to fixing the typos that authors make that shows that authors make a lot of typos. That's what I finally like clicked into that. I was like,
I mean, you're welcome for the job security.
You're a job creator.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're welcome. I do this for you.
Yes. I'll try to be worse in the future, which I think I am as I age. So
I know it's only getting worse with spell check. I lean so hard on it that I'm just like, I don't know how to spell anything anymore. Like I go off the computer and it's like, it's just a crapshoot. Like, good luck.
I was trying to spell the word architecture. It's been like a couple days and it's just completely left me how to spell the word architecture. And I'm just like, okay, that one's gone. Yeah. Maintenance. I can't spell maintenance. Sorry.
I love the reality because I do this when I listen to podcasts too. I love the reality that sometimes we'll do things in a podcast episode knowing that like, because we can't think of a word or how to spell something, people listening are going ARCH.
Right.
Come on, you idiots.
Totally. I got this.
Yeah. It is amazing when the stakes are high, how sometimes the brain just goes away. And people listening at home have their,
there's one person out there that knows the writing dyslexia term and has been shouting it for the past 5 minutes. When you started, did you feel like you had a transportable skill set to PBs?
Yes. I think that this was this is where it felt like things were really clicking together for me because not just a short form comedy, because I only write funny books. Like that's just what I like and that's what I like to put out in the world. But the heightening of events that applies to like comedy writing, it's the same kind of thing you need to do with books. I also think that I have done an okay job of keeping a childlike mindset. I swore to myself when I was 10 that I would try to, and it's been a struggle, but I think that I have been able to do that. And I think that being a professional copywriter and being a professional content creator, or not content creator, that's something else. A content strategist is what my technical day job is, which I don't know what it is, but that's what I do for tech. It's this whole world of like, I write words that go on the website and then a designer takes the words and makes it into like a flow that a user can use on a website. It's like very applicable to like writing a book and then handing it off to an illustrator to see what they do with it. So I think that whole process came a lot easier to me, especially like I care about what I'm writing, but I am so good at killing my darlings. I'm so good at just turning things over, letting them go, because it always comes back so much better than I could have ever imagined when the illustrator, especially when an editor gets involved. All of my editors have been incredible. But when the illustrator gets involved and I see the characters and like Jet the cat has pieces of paper in her body that have the word cat in different languages. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that, but Terry Vernon was like, this is what we do, and it's beautiful. And so I think that process is much easier. I do think also from being an actor and all the rejection and stuff, like when I get all those like no's, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Whatever, next time we'll see what happens. Like my self-esteem was very low during those days, and now nothing can hurt me. I'm like, whatever. You hate my book? I don't care. I probably hate it more than you.
I'm also a parent, as I'm constantly critiqued. Yeah,
exactly. Oh my God, my daughter every day tells me that she hates me. And I know she doesn't mean it, but I'm like, thank you. Just keep on going.
I know, right? I'm like, I love you too.
Yeah. That's what I say. I'm like, well, I will always love you.
Which just enrages them more. Do you have that experience? And I'm like, well, I don't know what you want me to do here. Mm-hmm. Like, I love you so much. Mama, stop it. And I'm just like, okay.
I do love kids.
Now I'm going to go write a picture book about you passive aggressively.
Yeah, right? There. We'll see who.
Just steal all your ideas.
You will get none of my advance when I sell this book.
That's right.
So, Faye, you and I have, I think, similar lines of work. And by the way, in the middle of this conversation, I sent you a LinkedIn connection request. I am on LinkedIn for basically 60 to 70% of my job. And I mean, speaking of transportable, I do social media management among a bunch of other content-y things. But it is so, like, speaking of transportable skill sets, it is so easy to set it and forget it. With the work that I do, I am so not precious about what I write, which maybe is problematic for some of the ideas that I have. That, like, if they don't work out, I'm very quick to abandon them in favor of one of the 100 million other things that have occurred to me to write. Just because that's the mindset that we have to be in, right?
That's it, exactly. I think it's like you try as hard as you can. And then, but be fully prepared to throw it all out. And that's the way it is with all of my day jobs in tech. And that's the way I think it is with picture book writing too. I think it's a hard balance because I believe that people want to get something out of the hard work they do, which makes sense, but it just doesn't always work out that way. And if it doesn't, if you've written something, like I've written many books that I really thought were wonderful and I thought were going to be great. And there was just no interest. And you know, you can, as a creator, decide to take that personally and mean, you know, maybe I'm not a good writer or my ideas are good or not good. I had like an opposite Freudian slip. I'm like, all my ideas are good. But you could also just throw it aside.
I'm amazing. Yeah,
I'm amazing. But I love my writing, but I also acknowledge that it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be for everyone. But I think it's the act of working in a day job, especially in tech, where people are like, let's work on this for 6 months and then we're just going to cancel it on a whim. And it's like, okay, that's going to either make me feel wild and I'm going to like gnash my teeth and flip tables, or I'm going to be like, okay, thanks for the paycheck, beep, bop, boop. And that's, you know, that's easier for me.
Well, yeah. And that's the funny thing about it is, you know, people cancel things that they've invested in so much more than we do our precious little manuscript babies. Yeah,
it's interesting. I've been reading this book. It's actually for a book club that I just joined. It's a Brene Brown book, the Atlas of the Heart. And I think it's the new one. I don't know. I've never read any Brene Brown before. It's actually a little bit above my where my brain goes at night. So like I'm really trying hard to like get into it and like, you know, pretend that I'm smart. So anyways, I'm reading it and it's all about language, right? And so a lot of it is about you know, like language and words we attribute to different emotions. So I read a part of it last night about disappointment specifically and how it's all about expectations. And so if you're putting expectations out into the world onto somebody else and their reaction, I mean, you're going to be disappointed like 100% of the time, right? Because you can't. And so it was very applicable to writing. And I stared at it for like a long time because I was like, I'm like, yeah, that is totally true. And her point was, and this is my one thought about the book. I wish that she would tell you what to do about that. Like, okay, great. Like, this is the problem. We have pinpointed it. Now what?
Yeah.
Like, can you plus up the didactic in your advice? Please tell me exactly what to do. Because the thing was, she was like, okay, so you have to find validation within yourself then. Like, what do you need? Like, ask yourself, what do you need to validate your own work or your own, you know, whatever expectation that is. And that's what I stared at for a long time because, as I said, she doesn't tell you. And I'm like, could you please just tell me? Like, how do I do that? What do I do? But because for writing, it's like, what is the thing that will validate like my own work so that when I put it out into the world, it doesn't matter as much because hardly anybody is going to like what I do. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the odds because there are so many gates to jump through. Like, the odds are not in your favor. They just aren't. So how do you keep the validation and like those expectations, like it, like
inward, like keep them to yourself, that you can like do that.
Yeah.
So anyways, just some food for thought.
No, I think it is that it's so true about expectations, and the less I expect anything from the world, like the happier I am, the less resentments I build up. And it's especially true in the picture book world. Like there's no, or kidlit or being an author or an artist at all is like, I don't know why I do it. If I could honestly tell you, like if someone was like, so why do you do this? I mean, I guess I really do like it when there's like, when you get to sit in front of a group of kids and read your book and talk to the kids, like that's really nice, but that's not guaranteed. I think there's something like that I'm continuing to prove to myself that I can do this and that I can put my stories out there, and that I am worthy. And like, there's like, you can tap into your like low self-esteem issues and let those ride into the sunset with whatever you're working on. I don't think it's a bad use of those emotions because I feel so pleased with myself whenever I accomplish anything. Like I'm like sending an email to Mo being like, hey, I'm excited about this revision. And I'm like, good job, Phaea. That's really, look at you being a person.
Check out what I did. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's nice. I've heard this phrase too that ties right into like expectations and resentments, which is resentments is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die because it just makes you sick and worried. And I don't like to live like that. I'm anxious. I'm worried all the time anyway, but I don't want to live like that, especially about the thing that is supposed to be fun for me, which is writing. No.
It's time for this week's book reviews from Josh. It's an oldie in comp terms, but Josh's review for this week is for 2015's The Pirate's Bed, written by Nicola Winstanley and illustrated by Matt James. Consistent with his review from our last episode of Min Lee's Real to Me, there's a central theme here of the main character, here abed, making the best of a situation they can't fix. Adaptation, contentment, dissatisfaction, reconciliation, and stinky feet describe the emotional journey of a sturdy bed that goes on an unlikely journey. The art is grungy and painterly and very pirate appropriate. From a picture book writing perspective, it's one of those weird ones, the premise of which almost seems too weird to make into a book, which is to say, go ahead and write that weird thing. From John's review this week, albeit not a new story by any stretch of the imagination, is David Goes to School by David Shannon, a true David classic that humorously illustrates David's antics, from running in the halls to chewing gum in class, in a way that makes it relatable and entertaining for readers of all ages. The repetitive "No, David" will always get a hoot and a holler from the younger readers too. John gives this 5 food fights out of 5. And my review for this week is for J.E. Morris's new book, Sharing is Unbearable. We love all of J.E.'s stuff in our house, in particular the Flubby books. So this book was a much anticipated book, and it delivered. A hilarious and heartwarming story about friendship and learning to share. Get yours today. Don't forget to get your own library reviews and requests in. It's the #1 way to help an author's sales. Love the podcast and want to help support more great episodes like this one? Check out our Patreon, grab some cool podcast swag, give a shout out to someone amazing in the kidlit world, or review and share an episode with friends. And now, back to our show. No, 100%. I did an interview yesterday about my book coming out, and one of the questions was, what would you tell, aspiring authors? And one of the things I said was, first of all, I said, it's always going to be hard. It just is. You have to get better at hard things, because otherwise you're never going to get through it. Just be better at hard. So that's #1. And #2 is I was there have been stretches of my writing career where I'm just not psyched. I'm slogging through it. It doesn't feel fun. I'm grouchy because I got, rejections on X, Y, and Z, or I thought this was the one, and my critique partners were poking holes in all the stuff, and I'm just so mad, right?
Yeah.
But I was the thing is, if that's how you're gonna spend this time, it's not gonna get you anywhere. Whatever you write is gonna be garbage, #1, because it's coming from a place of anger and just resentment, right? And all the yuck feelings.
I'll show
right?
them all. Yeah.
Right? And that does nobody any good. And #2, it's so not fun for you. At least for me. It's not fun. So so like going back to the thing that like is like exciting and like really cool and is the thing that I like wake up thinking about, and I'm like, oh right, that's the story I'm working on. Like I cannot wait to like get in there, and I have this idea and whatever.
Yeah.
That's the thing that like you have to find and like keep going. Like I just recently revised like a semi-old manuscript. I sent a revised version to Josh just this morning, but it's one that like I love this story so much. Like it's so like fun and heartwarming and like magical, and it's nonfiction, and it just like the layers upon layers upon layers. Like I just love it so much, right?
Mostly
like
nonfiction.
That's right, mostly.
Oh, mostly nonfiction. I was like, Josh, that was so rude. I was like, God, what kind of podcast is this? Yeah, mostly nonfiction.
But that's the thing. Like for the last couple of mornings, I've been like waking up and I'm like, oh, that story is so great. Like I'm so glad that I circled back around and whatever. And it's like, you know, like I'm excited again. So like that's the thing that you have to find. Like that's the validation, I think. That's the thing. Like that's why I do it, because it's fun. Because I like it. Because it's good for me. Yeah, like whatever for the rest of you. Like it's fun for me.
That's right.
You know? Like right? You have to have that mindset. Otherwise it's not going to end well. It just
No, I completely agree. I think like I write for like the younger Phaea, like very deliberately, like not on purpose, but I look back and I'm like, everything I'm doing is for her, which is fine. I don't know, you know, I'm not sure what my therapist would think about that. It seems fine to me. But also
I think it's fine.
I think it's fine.
Totally.
That's good. Okay, we're good then. It's fine.
Validated.
But also like I really have a high level of delusion. Where like I don't worry about what's gonna happen. I'm like this is what, like it is, like whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. It's like maybe this is you know, it's very hard to get a book published. It's very hard to sit down and write a good story. It's very hard to like, you know, go be out there with your art and not feel I don't even know, not good enough or whatever. All this is really hard. So I'm choosing to not think about any of that and just live in the delusion of just like, this is what I do and it's going to be great. Hope you enjoy it. Beep, bop, boop. And that's a much happier place than me. It's like the opposite of denial, you know? And then whatever happens, I'm like,
my delusion has become reality.
Yes. And then it becomes reality. And I feel like the funny thing is the good stuff that happens in my professional career as a writer, there's still so much, not worry, but like realism applied to it. Like when I sell a new book, I'm a little excited, but I was like, but maybe no one will like it and no one will buy it, you know, and it's like not a negative thing. It just kind of keeps me balanced. Like, so I don't
tempers those expectations.
Yeah. And I wish I could be a little more excited. I'm working on being less, you know, like worst case scenario, although I think it kind of right now helps me build the muscle of like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and not be like, this is it. This is going to change the world. And I'm going to be the best writer. And because that's not a great place for me either.
Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. To ride that middle ground.
Yes.
I heard what you said a second ago as my mom always says, or my mom always asks, are you going to sell any of these, or are people going to like it? And I thought, I was like very concerned for your relationship.
for your childhood, first of all. Yeah.
My mother
no wonder you constantly try and please.
Person, yeah. Just trying to prove to her that I'm good. No, my mom is she's lovely and so supportive, and she paid me for one of the copies of my books. She gave me a check, and I haven't cashed it.
Oh my gosh.
I think that is too sweet. I'm like, yeah, she gave me a check. I know. She's incredibly supportive. I think I have 2 books coming out next year, which is lovely. And the second one, which is called Princess Battle Royale, about fairy tale princesses and WWE like wrestling style.
Amazing.
It's gonna be good, I think. I'm excited
Preposterous.
about it. We're going to see what happens.
That is amazing.
I was talking about seeing the art. I saw some of the art from that. The illustrator's Jen Hill, and I saw some of the previews of the art, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. But so I'm dedicating that to my mom and my dad, because I think it's time. I've gone through all the people I've gone through. My daughter and my son.
I've gone through everybody else. It's your turn.
My first grade teacher. Yeah, so next year is my husband. With
the mailman.
Yeah, the mailman, and then my parents. I wanted this one is like, I'm very excited about this one, so I'll dedicate that to them. But the kids they actually fought each other over who was going to get dedicated which book. Of my first 2 books, it was it was confusing, and they won. And I don't think it's right because Mabel got dedicated, or I dedicated Jet the Cat Is Not a Cat to Mabel, even though she came up with the idea for Super Pizza and Kid Kale. But that they figured it out between the two of them. My son Harvey and my daughter Mabel debated, and that's what they came up with. I was like, that's fine. Whatever you want.
That's really funny.
Yeah. It is that it was stressful, I think, when I was at the dedication part of Jet the Cat Is Not a Cat, I'd already sold Super Pizza. So I was like, okay, cool. So I can do one for each.
All right,
and then everybody else can deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's stressful.
Yes.
Because you don't want to curse yourself. I'm like I'm warding off the evil eye right now. You don't want to be like,
totally.
Yeah. Like, remember when Lauryn Hill wrote a song about one kid, but then she had other kids and she didn't write a song about those kids? And I felt so bad for those kids because they didn't.
Totally. And then you're just like, what are you going to do now? Yeah. Like, how many of these do you have in you? Right.
Yes.
I feel like, that's some heavy first child syndrome stuff, right? Or like middle, whatever, baby syndrome.
Yes. Shout out to Brene Brown and Lauryn Hill.
Rare, come on the show.
Unlikely mentions
chat with you.
on the show.
We would love to chat with you.
Yeah. Brene Brown, she's the empathy lady, right? She's got all the like.
And she does like all the TED Talks and stuff.
I can't. The reason I write Kidlit is because books like that, like I can't. Like I will read exactly 1/4 of every single one of those. Like I don't even know what they are. Self-help, business. Like
empowerment
books,
kind of.
I can't make it through the rest of it. I'm like, I can't do this with you. I can't do this with you. I'm doing something else.
I know. And I mean, I would love to, like, in theory, I think Brene Brown is amazing. Yeah. Like, I love all that she says about emotions.
I've become a big reader in my like 30s and 40s. But before that, the focusing on like thick books that are like nonfiction or something at college was really hard for me, even though I love books, because I was like, I can't read this. I would fall asleep. It was like a nightmare. And I don't think that can't be illegitimate. That's a child. Wait, what am I trying to say? The word, it has to be, it's legitimate to not be able, please cut all that out.
Nope.
Like we get to read the stuff that we want to read, right? I was just saying this to babies yesterday, like kindergartners and first graders, because I was like, read as many books as you can, but that might mean one book a month. That might be one book every 2 months. Like that might be as much as you can. And like, you don't have to push yourself to read a bunch of books, because I certainly do not. Sometimes one year I read 100 books and I was like, well, look at that. But they're all, middle grade books. They were, because those are great, but that's fine. Yeah. But I can't make it through like Sapiens and like Radical Candor. I just can't do it. It's just not for me.
Well, and to your point, I mean, like circling back to kids, right? Like that's why, like, let them read whatever it is they want to read. Like just give them all of the things that they want to read and are willing to read, right?
We all have a copy of Sapiens. We've all made it about 1/4 through.
Uncracked spine.
Yeah, that's right.
I've never read a page.
It's good, but it makes me feel a lot.
I'm sure it's wonderful.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's lovely. That's okay. We don't have to be everything for everybody, right? But yeah, reading what you want. And I think it's so nice to live in this time now where graphic novels are such a big part of the learning process. And in fact, one kid, I was at a school visit a couple weeks ago, and I was like, who wants to be an author? After I did my amazing presentation. And this one kid was like, can I be an author if I don't want to write graphic novels? So I guess there's like so many graphic novels now. This poor kid was like, is this all? And I'm like, no. You can do whatever, write poetry. But it's so funny.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It was really funny. But I was like, I get what you're saying, because everything that's popular right now is a graphic novel, which is great. I love them.
It reminds me, this is just a quick story from my childhood, but that reminds me of a story. My mom took me shopping for clothes, and she put me in this like jumpsuit, like this like jogging suit. And we were in the changing room, and I was like almost like crying. And she's like, are you okay? She's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't want to jog. Like I just figured if I was in a jogging suit, like I definitely had to go for a run, and I really didn't want to.
It makes perfect sense. Like that's what it's called. Right. It is so stressful when you don't understand what the process. I'm so glad you're able to speak up. Like, I think that's great.
In this matching outfit and just like, trying to please my mom. I really didn't want to go for a jog. But this poor kid, you don't have to write graphic novels, buddy. You can whatever you want.
I think he will. I had that look in his eye.
I do.
Yeah, he's going to write something really good.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay, so real question, real talk here.
Finally.
I mean, I wanted to talk to you about your books, of course.
Let's get serious.
But I feel like I always swoop in and then ask some disruptive question in these conversations. But that's what I'm doing right now.
Perfect.
We're just going to run with it. Real talk. I want to talk about your books. That's primary reason for having you on. But also, like my entry into Phaea, into who you are as an artist, is the pizza head, is the performance, and I feel like your Instagram feed is filled with you taking time to be out in the world and celebrate your books. And it doesn't feel like you're doing book promotion. It feels like something that you genuinely enjoy doing. That didn't end in a question, but I mean, no,
I was agreed.
You make time for school visits and outreach and putting your books on tables and talking to people, and it's joyful for you.
Oh yeah. I think that this has been new. Like, I'm still learning as I go. And it didn't occur to me until last year that I could go rent a table at like the New York is not the state I live in, New England Comic Festival. What's happening? So like, it didn't occur to me that who am I? It didn't occur to me that I could rent a table at like a comic festival and sell books. It didn't occur to me that I could, walk into my local bookstore in Marlborough, Massachusetts, which is run by this wonderful ex-librarian named Allison. It's called Word on the Street. Walk in and she'd be like, "Hi, I'm an author. Can we be best friends?" And now I like do events with her. I've like, it didn't occur to me you could do these things and you go out and you just start doing stuff. And I love being on my feet for 8 hours, dressed in a pizza costume, because also I'm not like well known. It's not like people are like, "Ooh, Phaea Crede, the author." Like I'm still up and coming, and maybe I'll never, that's fine. But if I put on a pizza jumpsuit and I put on a giant pizza mask, like, kids love it, and they come up and they're interested, and we talk, and that is like it's a way to get attention, quite frankly, and it's. I like being a spectacle. I think it's fun. It's one of my superpowers. I think I don't get embarrassed very easily. And it's really fun to find, like with Jet the cat, it was like cat ears. We'll wear cat ears. We'll have a giant cat face. I did some videos because it was during the pandemic. So we did a little book launch where I would wear a giant cat head. And I thought that was really funny. But with the pizza stuff, there's so much weird stuff and costumes you can get with pizza. Pizza brings everybody together in a certain way. Like in general, most people like pizza, and kids have a relationship with pizza. So there's like really cool sort of, we all get what's going on here. And the mask is absurd and the jumpsuit is cool in some ways. And it's a nice way to match the attention that I crave with like, selling the books and talking to people and finding out. I have this little thing I set up at events where you get to decide whether you're more like Super Pizza or Kid Kale, and like write a little description of each, and the parents read it to the kids and they vote and they get a lollipop or whatever. But I've like learned those tricks by going to events and seeing what other authors do. I really do love it. If I could do it every single day, I would. I don't think that would be possible, but I'm going to Andover, which is not a town you would all know about, but it's a town in Massachusetts tomorrow to do an author event at a library. And then next week I'm going to Poughkeepsie for the Poughkeepsie Kids Book Festival.
I know Poughkeepsie.
Yeah. And so these are...
Just because it's fun to say.
It's great to say. I feel incredibly lucky that I get to do these things because there's so many... Well, the Kid Lit community is amazing. And I really do... I have a lot of stamina. I love talking to people as long as I can go collapse afterwards. And I really do love being a spectacle. I think it's so much fun.
Well, and it's interesting because the way that you talk about it, I know you ended what you were saying with, I love doing this, but you talk about it as though you are a conduit for something bigger than just like Phaea wants attention. Like Phaea wants to create a space where you can celebrate both, a love for the books that you and the rest of your book teams have created, as well as celebrate literacy and just live in this space of book love, silly love, rather than, it being look at me kind of. Right?
That is the core desire I have is truly to like let kids know that they're okay. And that there are people out there that maybe feel weird like they do. Because that's what I need. That's what little Phaea needed. And so that like really drives me. I do love hanging out with kids. I love going to schools. I love going to just being able to talk with a kid who's like the age of, that my books are written for, and making that little connection. It does something for me, but it also feels like we build this sort of, this deeper connection of community around let's all, if you're weird, you can be weird. Look at this lady, she's in her 40s and she's wearing a pizza costume. And if that's okay with you, that's great. If you're not into it, that's also great. But I feel like that's what I needed. And I feel like it's what a lot of young kids need, is just to know that there is no limitation to being the weirdo you are inside. You can just bring it out, and there are people that get it, and there are people that will embrace it. And that's really what I want to do. I wish I could make everyone feel okay about themselves. I don't think it's possible, but one or two kids, I think that would be really nice. I think it's really hard to be a kid. It's a version
of representation.
Yeah. It is so hard to be a kid. Totally. Yeah. It's hard to be an adult, right? It's hard to, I had this conversation recently, when you're a kid, it is hard to be a kid for lots of reasons. But when you're a kid, the filters and sort of the barrier to making friends is so small, right? It's like I love to quote this Jerry Seinfeld episode, which I haven't quoted Seinfeld in several episodes. So here we go. But I love this thing he says in his stand-up, and he's like, when I was 10, it was easy to make friends. You were like, you love cherry soda, I love cherry soda, let's be best friends. Which is totally true. That is 100% accurate. But when you're an adult, it's you just don't have that sort of ease anymore. So really leaning into the weirdo that you are, I feel is a great filter for finding your people. This is who I am. I'm going to be a weirdo. I'm going to wear the pizza thing. And if you resonate with that, then amazing. Let's hang out. Let's be friends. Let's do this. Right. And if you don't, that's totally fine. It doesn't, that's not, it's neither good nor bad. It just is a thing. And you can find your people over here, and this is where I'm going to be. But I think do my pizza thing. Yeah. I think
you know exactly what you're getting with a person who shows up in a pizza jumpsuit. Yeah. There's no need for small talk. There's no need for anything beyond that. And I have made incredible friends in the kidlit world. And it is, friends are it's so hard. It's so hard to keep up with friends as adults. But that's why it's nice to have so many friends that write picture books, because at least we get to talk about that. And that's useful.
That's why it's nice to have a podcast that we do every week.
Hey, that's smart.
We've got almost 100 new friends now. We counted our episodes, and we're pushing 100 episodes.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Well, yeah. But it is case in point, for show up and create a space.
That's right.
And be weird.
And also, if you don't have the energy to do that, that's going to be okay too. I think I don't want to
There's quiet friends.
Yeah. Because I'm outgoing and I like to be behind a table. It doesn't mean if you're not into that you're doing something wrong. In fact, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm doing, the bare minimum of being out in the world and promoting my books. But we all have a weird attitude towards ourselves, I think, about what is too much and what's not enough.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I feel it's worth it to say, you can still be weird, even if you're not outgoing or showing up, in a pizza costume. You can be weird in your own way and still find your people.
Yes.
So we are getting up towards the hour. I just wanted to talk about what do you have coming out, and can we promote anything? What can you chat about that we can
awesome.
Point people to?
Well, how lovely. So I have 2 books coming out next year. And I'm part of a promotional group called Book Hive 25. So shout out to my Book Hive 25 folks. The first book is called Oh Dear, and it's coming out from Sleeping Bear Press, which I'm very excited about. I think it's spring 2025. It's about a Sasquatch who's trying to grow a turnip garden in the woods, and it keeps getting eaten by deer, obviously. So I have a big thing for cryptids. I don't know there's my cryptid calendar. I love cryptids. I love Bigfoot. Amazing. I believe in all of them. So they're very excited about that book. And then, as I mentioned, Princess Battle Royale is coming out next summer with art by Jen Hill, and that's coming out from Viking. And I'm hoping to do some sort of tie-in with professional wrestling women. I actually watch a lot of professional wrestling because it's amazing, and it's the best. Awesome. It's the best sport ever. So I'm hoping to do some cross publication promotion. We'll see, but I'm very excited about that one. It's very action filled, feminist, silly fairy tales. I'm really proud about both those books.
Phaea, manifest what that would look like. Your ideal.
Like what does that promotion look like? Yeah.
So there's
great question.
I mean,
I want to know.
So I guess like the best case scenario is we have people like Willow Nightingale from All Elite Wrestling dressing up like one of like Rapunzel from my book and wrestling in the ring. That would be great. But at the bare minimum, if we have people, Mercedes Monet, the CEO from All Elite Wrestling, holding up the book in her Instagram post and being like, "This is cool." If Thunder Rosa is holding up the book and being like, "Look at this," that would be great. Because I think that wrestling is almost the same as Kid Lit in some ways because it's very silly, it's very active, it's mostly family friendly, and I think there's all these storylines that are very silly, absurd even, but I love it. And at the core, professional wrestling is all about best friends. And maybe they're not getting along and that's why they have to fight in the ring. I'm so sorry I'm talking about this, but it's really true. I really love it so much. It brings me a lot of joy. So that's the dream.
I watched Glow. I get it.
Glow is great.
I was gonna say
Glow's amazing.
It's like Glow meets Disney World.
Yeah,
sort of,
I pitched it as
those are your comps.
Glow meets the Brothers Grimm. That's what I pitched it as.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
No, that's more applicable to books and stuff.
I worked on it.
Awesome.
We're just brainstorming here. So those are my 2 books that I'm really excited about. But I have
a brainstorming comps for a book that has already sold. So, after.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's rework the comps. I get back to your editor, message them, and just be like, "Look, let's scrap that. Let's try again."
I think I will. So I'm very excited about both of those books. And then because I had no books coming out this year, and I get very anxious if I don't have something going on, I started a podcast, which has nothing to do with Kid Lit, but it's with one of my adult friends who I don't get to spend time with, and it's about rats. And it's called Brodents. So I'd love to promote Brodents.
Okay.
If you're into rats.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Please. Amazing.
Yeah.
Please listen to Brodents.
Brodents.
Yeah, like rodent, but with a B at the front. We're both women, but we're Brodents. Because rats are fun. And I love picture books about rats. I've always wanted to write a picture book about rats, but I've just never, I have a lot. None of them have been acceptable to the outside world. Maybe in the future. Yeah, love rats.
Awesome.
Agents, reach out.
Yes.
Reach out.
Yes.
If there or editors rather, reach out if there's space in your calendar.
Yes, if your manuscript wish list is riddled with stories about rats, please.
Can't imagine.
Like a block of Swiss cheese.
Yes.
Speaking of cheese, I had this written down a long time ago. Do you feel, because we were talking about like being able to put your babies aside, final question, do you feel like there is a future for your moonbutt?
For my book? What? I'm sorry. Oh, the moonbutt book.
Your moonbutt.
I don't know why my brain just shut off. I was like, moonbutt? What's a moonbutt? I believe, so every time I submit a book, or Mo submits books in a traditional manner where she sends it out to editors and they tell us no. I've never sold a book that way.
As is the tradition.
Sold books like with weird little connections. Somebody being like with Sleeping Bear, we were sending out Oh Dear to other editors, and I sat with a big stack of Sleeping Bear books just by coincidence, and I was reading through it, and I was like, this is a perfect press for this story. And so I asked Mo, I was like, could you just send it to Sleeping Bear? Because I think they'd like it. And they like literally made an offer like two months later. Like it was really fast because we were, and I felt really lucky because my editor there, she's incredible. Like it's just a perfect fit. And so I've never had a traditional submission yes situation. So is there a future for Full Moon is also a but? Yes. I think we've gone on submission. We've heard a lot of hell no. But yes, I believe there's a future. I live in the delusion. I believe that book will be a book someday.
I'll connect you with my editor.
Yay! But books.
Right?
John, if you're listening, when you listen, I promise I am not going to turn your press into a butt press.
Why not?
Despite my earnest desire to do so.
Right? That's his manuscript wish list, just butts.
Yeah, just butts and rats.
Butts.
Just butts.
Right? That's definitely what we need.
I love it.
I mean, thank you so much for coming on. This has been one of my all-time favorite conversations. I feel like your weird speaks to me in a very specific way, and I very much appreciate all that you do and put out into the world. I'm so glad we got to chat.
Me too. And I'm so excited to read your book because it's a couple months away, isn't it? Or is it, when is...
It comes out May 1st.
May 1st? Yeah. Oh my God, it's like a second from now.
It already came out as of when this airs, and everybody loved it. But
I read it. I own it. Thank you for the signed copy.
Right.
It's amazing.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, now you're committed to the signed copy. Thanks, Phaea.
Thank you both. This was incredible.
Thanks for listening this week.
Find all of our episodes and other associated links and information at linktree.com/verseshow.
Or reach out to us on Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see you next verse.
Bye.